Hey everyone, welcome back to the Passive Buddies podcast. And today we are doing sharing is caring. Okay, we're looking at the sharing economy business model and why it is a model that can set you free. Okay, so Brandon, as usual, is here. He's excited, he's pumped, he's had his cup of tea that I can't even describe what was in there. But he's ready to go on this one. So sharing economy. Is it just a fad or is it something that's to stay?
I think it's definitely to stay. I think that prices are getting extremely high for people, and with the ease of apps and websites, we can literally make money by sharing our things. Airbnb has been around for a while. We did a podcast on Turo, and so there is a great deal. It's funny, I just literally had someone the other day come back from renting my car, and I made like $200 for the week, maybe 5 days. And she was like, "Oh my God, this is so amazing. I'm telling all my friends that Turo is amazing. It's so much cheaper than a rental car, and it's a great way to meet new people." And I was like, "Yeah, it's really cool because," and I was like, "How did you hear about it?" She's like, "Actually, the budget rental car told me I should go to Turo because they didn't have any cars for me because of the supply chains and all that. They didn't have any cars for anyone." So she had to use an app and use Turo and rented my car, and I made money. She got a discount because she wasn't paying all the ridiculous fees that you have to pay with a rental car service. And she literally just had to drive to my house, get the car, and then leave, go on her trip to Corpus Christi, and then come back and then drop it off. And she didn't really, just like a rental car service. And it was, for me, I got paid. I didn't have to do anything. Instead of it just sitting in my front yard, I was actually making money from my car. And I didn't have to drive for Uber. I didn't have to drive for Lyft. I literally just made passive income where someone came to my house, picked up my car, and then left. And that's as easy as it was. We have a whole podcast on Turo if you want to go and watch or listen to that podcast. I highly recommend it because we go deeper into the topic. But I want to go over a few different products that you can use, like Airbnb, which is, so Turo is like, or sorry, Airbnb is like the Turo of, or vice versa. Airbnb is for houses where you rent out a house for the weekend so that you can, stay for a vacation or for a bachelorette or bachelor party or whatever that is that you're doing in a house. And then Turo is like the Airbnb of cars, where you rent out your car for the weekend for people on vacation, for when their car needs to be in repair. They can rent out your car for whatever reason. And so I like both of these services, but a third one is Fat Llama. And many people probably haven't heard of Fat Llama. I actually found this a few years ago, but it's a service where you can rent out your electronics. And so if you have, say, a record or like a old school record player that you want for vinyl and people want to use that, you can rent that out. If you have a drone that is just sitting in your garage, then you can rent that out to other people. If you have a laptop, I actually had a few Chromebooks that were on there, and people were like, "Hey, can I rent that?" And I actually sold it on on Facebook Marketplace a few years ago. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot I had that on there," and so I took that off. So there are so many ways to actually use the share economy to make money. I had a guy who I actually know, Spencer. Spencer, he's on YouTube. You probably know him from doing scam reports, but he just started getting into Turo because he bought a Tesla, and people like Teslas to test drive before. And so they'll go on Turo, they'll rent Teslas to test them out and see if it's a car that they actually want to use. and then they'll actually go buy the car. They won't buy the car. So you can test drive cars in a sense for the weekend by going on Turo versus going to a dealership. And so in doing so, you can make a substantial amount of money. Like my car, I have an old 2015 Prius, and it makes me about I think $1,000 to $1,100 a month. Completely passive. I really don't have to do anything. I don't have to pay for gas because every time they fill it up, or every time I rent it out, they have to fill it up to the full amount because that's where it sits at. On Airbnb, you can literally rent out your spare bedroom. You can rent out another house if you have rental properties for short-term rentals, because these are all ways you can make money, passive income from your stuff that you have. And what's great is those people are paying down your debts. And so for me, I don't have a car payment anymore, but my car payment was, I believe, around $248 or so. I don't remember the exact figures, it's a few years ago, but my car makes 5 times that, 4 to 5 times that than my lease, not my lease, but my payment on my car, my debt service. And so if I'm making 5 times as much as what the debt service is, then they're essentially paying it off 5 times as quick, and that money doesn't come out of my pocket. Plus, since it's a business expense, I get to write off the miles and all the other expenses like my oil changes, car washes, all that is a write-off. Same thing with Airbnb. If you're renting out part of your home, you can obviously talk to your tax professional, but you can write off certain aspects of your house. So all these things you can use as a way to, one, increase your cash flow, but also decrease your expenses because you get to write them off as taxes. And so I love the sharing economy. And I've been actually, since there's a supply chain right now issue, I've been talking to different dealers on if they have other Priuses, because I would love to buy another Prius to rent out because it is a cash flowing machine. Plus, like I said, I literally don't have to pay. I pretty much don't have to pay any taxes on that money because the miles outweigh the money that I make on the write-offs on the miles outweigh the money that I make. So it literally is like I'm negative money on my rental car because of the write-offs. And so all that cash I really just get to pocket. And so using the sharing economy, you can make quite a bit of money.
Nice. Okay. So we've got, like, obviously we've got the houses, the Airbnb stuff, which obviously a lot of people are turning those into businesses, aren't they? Like, even for instance, if you take a look at like, you can go to find other people's houses that like are up for rent, and then you can take over that lease, can't you? And then you can Airbnb out. So you don't have to own the home, but you can find situations where you can effectively like sublet, as long as obviously the owner is okay with that. So you don't have to try and like save yourself up to buy this property first. People are going into, especially like apartments in cities, like, right, I'll rent this house out for you, or I'll rent this off for you, and obviously they turn it into this Airbnb scenario. So leveraging the sharing economy can also, especially in that instance, like, it's basically like no money down as long as you make the money for the rent, which obviously you just need to know your market and know that you actually can do that. So go back into the market research, but like leveraging like other people's houses that you don't own, or for instance, like cars, like if people go away for months on end, hey, do you mind if I rent out your car, or like I'll like bring you some income? Obviously, all these different things like you can leverage. So that's sharing upon sharing.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I'm glad you actually brought that up about renting out apartments. So when we go to the UFC games, we would go to a apartment community, and it was just a regular apartment that you would rent normally as a person. And that a lady that we rented from Airbnb, she would literally go to these luxury apartments. She would take out a yearly lease with them, and pay their $1,200 a month or whatever it was. Probably not that cheap, probably closer to $2,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment in LA. But she would then charge us like $300 a night to stay there. And so one weekend would pretty much pay for her, or 2 weekends would pay for her lease, And then all the other money was cash flow for her. And so in doing so, all she had to do was get into a lease and then pay the lease, but we were essentially paying the lease. So she didn't have any of the maintenance really, because the maintenance was taken care of from the apartment community. She just had to hire a cleaning crew to clean out every weekend or whoever after the person stayed there. So she didn't have to put a large down payment. She didn't have to go through a credit. She might have to do a credit check, but it wasn't like as extreme as being a landlord or going through the whole mortgage process. And so she was subleasing. The only risk with that is, so my wife was a property manager, and she would go on Airbnb and look and search for her community. And if they found that someone was renting on Airbnb, then they would serve them an eviction notice. So you need to obviously know what is cordial and what's allowed and what's not allowed. So you can do that, but just understand the risks that are involved with that. That is possible. I've actually gone on Craigslist, or was it Craigslist or maybe Facebook Marketplace, and looked for people who were selling their cars and asked them if I could, instead of make payments on a car, and essentially buy it from them and then rent it out on Turo. So I'm actually going to probably start doing that again, because the supply chain is quite low. So I might be able to pick up a few car rentals in a sense and add them to my fleet of cars. So that's kind of a way to do that, is you can do leases, and then obviously from either from people or from car companies. But with a lease, you have to obviously understand the miles and how many miles you can put on the car. So you got to know what works and what doesn't. That's why I just like buying cars and buying houses, because then I don't have to worry about kind of the middleman if I'm going to be charged extra for one, or be evicted for doing subletting in a sense. So obviously know the rules and the regulations and laws that are involved with all that. But yeah, I mean, you can literally, like you said, borrow someone else's car and rent it to other people and make money, or rent an apartment and then take that apartment and then turn it around and turn it on Airbnb, especially if it's like in a nice area that is focused on kind of tourism. So like LA was very a tourist place. Near the beach is usually a big touristy place. So if you can rent a house from a landlord and then turn around and put it on Airbnb, that's definitely a way to do it also. So there are so many ways to make money within the sharing economy. You just need to play within the guidelines, or buy your own assets and then rent them out on these sharing apps like Turo, like Airbnb, Fat Llama. All of these are great websites that you can use. And I'm sure there's plenty other websites also.
I think you've nailed it, mate. I think you've absolutely nailed it. So guys, obviously, if you have enjoyed today's episode, 100% please like, subscribe, follow, etc. Obviously, it'd be greatly appreciated. Obviously, take a look and see if any of these sharing economies apply to you, whether you can make some additional income, and we will see you on the next episode.
Peace.